Hello, hello. Now, it might be a bit of an unfamiliar face, a younger, better looking Grizz, but we're live nonetheless. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining us. Hopefully, more and more people will be streaming in. We are going to be talking and really going into the depths into this Liverpool team today. Of course, I'm Mush. I'm part of KopEnd Khanage. I'm joined by my KopEnd Khanage fellow compatriot Fahi. Fahi, how you doing today?
I've been better, bro. I've been better, but I'm here for a counselling session, a venting session, and I've got you. I've got my brother Cav, so this should be good.
Yeah, man. And with KopEnd Khanage, I've got to say, the appearance of Cav, I'm going to equate it to when Henrik Larsson joined Barcelona. An established man within the space, just coming up to Mount Olympus to show us exactly what he's made of. Cav, how are you today, bro?
Hey, I'm good. I'm even better for that introduction. Wow. I wasn't expecting that, but much appreciated. I'm doing good. Yeah, despite a disappointing result yesterday, I'm fine. As always, saying to you guys backstage, love talking football, especially this Liverpool side, and love your guys' shows. So I'm just so pleased that I've been asked to be a part of it now, and really looking forward to getting into the crux of yesterday's game and this team and what to expect and all things Liverpool, really.
Definitely. Now, I've got to say, I've seen in the comments some questions. Big Six is on tonight, 9 p.m. Grizz will be there. We're going to be flying the flag for a Liverpool-only episode right now. And the bigger thing, guys, we have something very, very special on the KopEndFracas page. Now, if you go and let me spell KopEndFracas for you on Twitter. And if you go and search it, you will find our big Christmas prize, which is how we miss him so much. A striker who really did produce for us in the Liverpool Red. A signed copy of the Roberto Firmino biography being held by Fahi there. And
it is signed. It's signed.
That is signed, and it can be all yours. Make sure you're following, make sure you're subscribing, and make sure you enter the competition and tell your friends. We do not want you to miss out. And of course, I can see everyone's already active. Make sure you're clicking like. Make sure you're subscribing to the Carnage channel. But let's get into it. Guys, comments. Do you know what? I'm going to come to each of you. And I want you to just tell me the one word that you would use for your feelings about the game. Cav, what's the one word you would use? Just one.
Disappointment. Ultimately.
Yeah, okay. Fahi?
Yeah, and I think disappointment is the one. That's the word I was going to go with. How about you?
I'm going to go a step further, and I'm going to use the word disgust. But this is from a build-up. This is from a build-up, not just this game, but from a build-up of stuff. But I really do want to get into it. I've got rubbish there. I've got frustrated. Fahi, I think you've got control of the sharing of the screen, so we'll get those comments in. Boring, frustrated, gutted. Yeah, not the most positive of outlook at the moment, and it's completely understandable. Got a diabolical there as well. Wow. Well, I really do want to talk about this, guys. I don't want this just to be a reactionary moment. It's a result that some people might say has been coming. Some people might say it's been out of the blue. Cav, this is a team we played against that are 36-2 down on aggregate since the last time they beat us at Anfield. It's a team that this season alone have conceded 4 to the likes of Galatasaray, to the likes of Copenhagen. Was there a confidence that you had, or were you a bit uptight because of the universal confidence that everyone had in the Liverpool space?
Yeah, so I think the Liverpool performances of late haven't been great. And we've just been getting across the line in different ways, largely by luck, in my opinion, and in some ways just moments of brilliance, but by no means just based on a brilliant performance for the duration of the games that we're playing. And I was a little bit concerned that even though it's Manchester United, even though it is a derby, that we would still put in the same lackluster performance. So that was my concern going into it from our point of view. From a United point of view, and I think Klopp alluded to this in his pre-match press conference is that this is a game that they can get some fans back on board if they were to get a result. They can get a little bit of feel-good factor back where they've seemingly got none at the moment. So I was wary about how they would approach the game and how they would respond to their recent woes. But all that being said, you expect Liverpool to win, and you expect them to come away with the 3 points, be it that we could have gone back top of the league, be it it's at Anfield, it's the festive period, it should be quite a good atmosphere inside Anfield, and everybody should just be pulling in the right direction. And to get anything less than 3 points was always going to be a disappointment. But to get a very lethargic performance.
Was it the manner? Was it the manner that frustrated you?
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. And we can get into the reasons why, and I'm sure we will. But at some point, you just need to see a good performance. You need to see a good performance combined with the result. And I really felt like that United team were there for the taking because of the players they were missing, because of the pressure that the manager's under, because of their recent results. Everything pulled in. We should have just got the job done, and we simply didn't. So just hugely frustrating. And one of the comments in the chat was boring, and watching Liverpool should never be boring. And I think I'd go along with that for large periods of that game.
Yeah, and Fahy, what was interesting was before the game, obviously a lot was being made of the fact that United were missing some key players, right? The likes of Bruno, a few others not being part of the team, but I was almost like, hold on, it's the Brunos of this world who are normally part of the lineups that we absolutely batter. So is them being missing actually an advantage because Ten Hag can play the tactics he wants rather than playing the players he is forced to play? What were you thinking in terms of what kind of United we would be up against?
I was thinking we'd come up against a United team that will be hungry to try and right their wrongs. But ultimately, based off the names on the team sheet and the quality that they've shown all season, a team that should be able to be picked off quite easily and quite simply by this team, the team in question, as in our team. But that just wasn't the case, man. I think, but you know what it is? I'm not going to give too much credit to United. Look, they came for the draw. They got their draw, right? But it wasn't because of their quality that they got their draw. They literally got the draw because of us playing against ourselves. And I think that's what needs to be the talking point. It doesn't actually need to be United.
I don't think United had a standout player at all.
Yeah, and that's not me being bitter. That's like they did what they needed to do. In their situation, they needed to come for a draw or get a sneaky 0-1 result. They got their draw. Based off the quality they had on the pitch, that's a fantastic result. So, they have every right to celebrate the way they should. But yeah, we played against ourselves.
Oh, okay. That's already opened up a statement that I want to get straight into it, because I was a part of the Saturday call-in show. I was on Call-in Khan. Me and Grizz were hosting it together. And there was a lot being said, a lot of, is this team underperforming, or is this an ugly reveal of the quality of this team? And now, Cav, we haven't had the chance to talk about this. I guess I should position where I have been, and Fahy's been laughing at me from a distance for the past few weeks, which is I have noticed game by game that there are certain players not scoring. And it came kind of bubbled up to an absolute explosion yesterday, because as we saw with the Athletic today, they posted that Diaz, Nunez and Darwin combined have not scored for 28 games, right? So is this something you've been noticing? And is there something you see in terms of, is it a lack of direction, or is this an ugly reveal, like I said, of the quality of these players?
I think it's a lot of things thrown in. I think the forward players themselves are just playing below what we expect and what they expect of themselves. You can look at them all individually and make reasons as to why. Salah, for me, is just playing below what we expect, and maybe that's partly to do with Trent occupying different areas now, maybe having Szoboszlai behind him as opposed to Jordan Henderson, and getting used to the way that he plays and the movement he makes and how he tries to link up with him. The same goes for linking up with a forward. He's been spent a lot of his time here with a link man in Bobby Firmino. Now he's got someone like Nunez up there or Gakpo that plays differently. So he's still adjusting slightly, I would say. Diaz obviously had a bit of time out with some off-field issues and the injury, perhaps still just coming back to match sharpness, match fitness, but still, I expect more from him. I expect him to beat his man more, take on his man more, show more dynamism, just show more creativity out on that left wing, show us what we were seeing when we first signed him, to be honest, that willingness to take his fullback on and make the fullback commit in challenges and bring him down or foul him on the edge of the box, or, you know, let him run by him and create something in the box. And then the forwards, Nunez, Gakpo, neither of them are in form. Both been here for a little while now, and you'd hope that they'd have found their feet. But again, they're having to readjust to a new system, having to readjust with new players behind them. So there's a few things thrown in. I by no means think it's an excuse. I think they should all be doing better. But it's quite alarming that when they're getting the ball in areas, they're not doing the business, you know, and that's upsetting for us to see, I believe, is when the likes of Diaz and the likes of Salah are out on them wings and they're on the ball and they've got options to pass around them and they've also got the option to beat their man. They're just not doing it, you know, and at the minute they're heavily reliant on things being made for them when actually they're the guys that are the guys. They should be getting the goals and the assists. They should be the creators. They are the forwards of this Liverpool side. And I think they've took their foot off the gas, and there's this expectation that the midfield's going to be more dynamic and create. There's this expectation that Trent's going to step in and do so much. And it's like, actually, you know, you are the forwards. You should be doing this. And if you're going, if games are passing you by where your performances aren't good and you're not getting goals and assists, you should look at yourself and say you've not done enough that day. And as them games go on, I mean, as you just said that, I just instantly remembered a statistic that was how many games when we had Lambert, Barini, and Balotelli went by and they weren't scoring, and I can't remember how many it was, but it was sad times, and Jesus, that you couldn't quite compare them players to the ones we have at the minute, but that's what them statistics you've just said will show. So it's a lot of things thrown in, but certainly the players themselves, they just need to be better. They need to be better. They need to recognise their position in this team. They need to recognise their forwards. They need to recognise that the excuses that were there last season aren't here this season. They need to just start kicking on this season.
Yeah, and I guess this kicking on thing, I mean, Fahy, I'm just really confused because for me, football is such a momentum game, right? Like the moment you do good things, more and more good things happen. And that snowball effect, we all see it. Like a player has one good moment at the start of the game, then they have another one. And suddenly that fullback who was jumping in to tackle them is backing away. And those little things there. And I just, even that first moment of telling the fullback today, you're going to be having a tough day because I've already done a quality moment. We're not even getting that marker put down at the start of the game. So why is that not happening for about 3 to 4 players?
I think when you're a top side, you need a good mix of arrogance / quality, and the balance of it needs to be to a certain level. And I think we've got the balance completely wrong. Now, I'm not saying we're too arrogant, but we're relying too much on our quality right now. So we're not actually, just based off what I see, and this was evident yesterday, it's as if we're so confident in ourselves that we will find a way to win that we just do the most stupidest things when it comes to approaching attacks against teams. We take our chances for granted. We take any opening for granted. You see that all the time. Like, for example, yesterday, first half, Nunez has the ball edge of the box. Tsimikas was on the left-hand side for the overlap. He doesn't take it. Instead, he'd rather take his time, cut in, try and find an angle for a shot, or just pass it off to someone. If you're 0-0, that's the last thing you should be doing. That's something you do when you're like 1 or 2 goals up, right? Yeah. You're actually trying to get the breakthrough goal. That is not what you do. And that's not just a Nunez issue. It's an entire team issue because they all did that yesterday. They all made the wrong choices because they all rely on individual quality to see us through. Now, if you look at the game since Man City, it's all been based off individual quality that we've got through those games. Man City was Trent. What was next? Sheffield United?
No, Fulham.
Fulham, that was Trent again.
Not just Trent, it was all of our midfielders basically putting the ball in the corner.
If you then look at what's the next game? It was
United was a set piece, Van Dijk.
There we go. And then after that, you had Palace. That was a Harvey Elliott last-minute wonder strike, right? Again, and that was because of, are you getting sent off? Otherwise, we can't even be confident enough in thinking that would have been 2-1. We've got away with a lot in the past 4 or 5 games, right? And it's all like great when we're getting away with things, but when that luck runs out, then you really need to look at what's gone wrong. And it's not a case of just what's gone wrong. It's just a case of how we're approaching games. And I just think we've got the balance completely wrong. We're just relying way too much on individual quality. And yesterday, for once, we were finally like shown up for, you can't do that. It's not sustainable. And I think, that's what happened yesterday.
I think also, like, one thing that I kind of raised a few weeks ago, and this was linked to the Darwin discussion, but extends to everyone, which is, you are right, Fahi. One thing that our team doesn't do is when we miss a big chance, especially earlier on in games, no one looks distraught because they think more chances are coming.
Yeah.
And sometimes the best chance in your game might be in minute 20 and a better opportunity might not come. And I think Darwin especially, he has this problem of, he will score the 6th chance, but sometimes a game is one chance and you change the entire story of the match, and Darwin doesn't change that. And like I said, I don't want this just to be a Darwin smear campaign. Luis Diaz also does not play a pass or create a goal that can change the story of a game as well. So, I mean, Cav, at the start of this season, our attack was so talked up, right? The most potent, it's a Swiss Army knife. There's one thing for everything. But we got a Swiss Army knife full of blunt tools at the moment. So what's going on there?
Well, I think what it's shown you is that you can have all the quality in the world and you can have all the variety in players and what they offer you in their individual attributes and the way they approach the game and so on and so on. But you have to find a system and a blend for it all to work. You have to set a team up to get the best out of these players. And whilst I think we're not too far off of that, it clearly just needs some work. It needs some development.
Are you looking at Klopp here for that?
Well, ultimately, that's where the book stops, is with the manager, because you can't have all that quality and not find a way of getting the best out of them. I totally agree with what you guys are saying. We've relied on moments of individual brilliance over the course of the past month. And I'd say most of this season, I would say there's only been one standout quality performance, and that was when we beat Aston Villa at home in that 3-0. We were brilliant that entire, and that was the bar. That was the standard set for this team, and we've since not matched it. But I do believe that we overcomplicate things a lot at times, and especially when we look at how we break teams down and we look at the width of the team. It's nothing new. This, Pep Guardiola became almost the master of it with his Barcelona side, and it's something he really tries to nail down with when he tells us wingers to stay high and wide at Man City and stuff. It's to make sure that you're stretching the opposition because you are the better team. Their main goal is to not concede and walk away with at least a point, and if they can get more, great. So you've got to recognize that you've got to break down this team, whether it's a low block, whether it's a mid block, whether it's a high press, whatever it is. You've got to find a way of getting through these sides, and the simplest way of doing that is to stretch them, be as wide as possible. And it seems like in recent weeks, the way that we've been successful in doing that is when we've brought sort of Gomez on, and we've played a right back as a traditional right back, and he's occupied wide spaces and he's put deliveries into the box from wide out. But we seem to we were not starting games in that respect. We're trying to get Trent in the middle of the park, occupying areas where there is already quality in the center of the park, in Szoboszlai and Gravenberch, and it becomes very congested and it becomes very narrow, and it becomes easy for the opposition to defend against us. And I just feel at times, whilst we have so many options in these players and we have so much dynamism, unless you're going to really go with this tick-tacker football and the blend of players you put on the pitch is perfect, and also the consistency as well, having a midfield 3 that play together week in, week out, which we've not been able to do through injuries. Unless that's the circumstances you have, I don't believe it's going to work. I think you just need to go back to basics in a lot of respect. Just play people in there.
What does basics look like? Because it's all well and good saying, and I agree completely, it's all well and good saying that we need to go back to a set of principles, but are these players that we have able to play in the same principles that the previous team was successful in?
Well, not. I believe that previous team that won the Champions League and won the Premier League, that is an exceptional team, and I think this is one thing as fans we need to sort of recognise, and this is what's distorting our opinions of this side and our expectations of the side. It's probably never going to be that good. You know, maybe we appreciated when we had it, maybe some of us didn't, but that was an elite level side. So we've got to recognise, although that's the aim, we want to be back there. We might not be, you know, but that's okay, because we might not need to be that good to go and win the Premier League and go win the Champions League. But I certainly think that there was a system there. There was a philosophy there, one that Klopp has always implemented in terms of his high press, his gen pressing, getting players up the pitch, winning the ball back early. They almost seem like the fundamentals that he had to build a very good side and multiple good sides. So I don't see now why we're moving away from that, you know. And for me, I just think unless what you move to really works and you can see the progression and you can see the success, often if it's you're getting the opposite and the performances aren't there over the course of a month, 2 months, the whole start of a season, it must be worthwhile going back to some of the fundamentals that you implemented in the first place, which in my opinion would just be to perhaps play Trent as a right back, where he's had the best periods of his Liverpool career on the right side. Play a 6 in it if it's going to be Endo. Leave Endo in there. Play 2 men either side of him that can get up and down the pitch. That we've seen Szoboszlai especially can do, and then just have a centre forward that tries knit things together, which at this point in time is Cody Gakpo. I think there's things we can do to just simplify our game a little bit. To be honest with you, whether it works or not, I don't know, but it just feels like at times things are a little bit overcomplicated.
Yeah, I mean, Fahi, this is all the things Cav has said, I agree with, but then in my head, I also think simplifying football, doing things you're good at, isn't this what all managers are wanting to do every week already? Is this something we're trying to ignite, or is this just something that we're struggling to do? I think of Jurgen Klopp as not an overcomplicating kind of manager. Once you learn his instructions, you normally have to just play out those instructions for 90 minutes and eventually you get the rewards. So is there a problem with the messaging here? Obviously, I mean, just 2 days ago on the call-in, a lot of callers were calling in saying that Jurgen has been really good with his subs. Obviously, we've got the most goal scorers out of all substitutes, 11 goals. We've had the biggest impact of substitutes of any team. So if the subs are going well, is it that we're not looking at it from the other side of there's something wrong with how players are starting games that subs are having to make such a big impact?
Before you made that statement, you made a point of is it to do with the instruction or is it to do with the players, you were saying? Right?
I'm saying more that is he not already asking for simple decisions and good things like that? Like, is what we're asking now from Klopp any different to what he's already trying to do?
No, but if you then watch the players on the pitch, they seem as if they're not really sure what they should be doing.
What do you mean? Expand on that.
So by that, let's look at Szoboszlai yesterday, right? I feel as if Szoboszlai struggled to understand what area of the pitch he should be manning, purely because of Trent and where he was positioned in the pitch as well. When you look at that, that's when you notice the issue that they were having when they were trying to lay the ball off each other. Like whenever they were laying the ball off, it was in the complete wrong area because they expected one to be somewhere else. And that didn't only happen once. It happened numerous times in the first half. It was constant. You then look at the left-hand side. I think Diaz, Graham, and Shimikas, they also weren't really sure what happens next. When you're in the final third of the pitch, who makes the run where? And that then gets me thinking, is it an instruction issue or is it just the players aren't capable of doing it? I have a feeling that instruction should be quite simple. And maybe the players that are on the pitch right now are just misunderstanding what they should be doing. That being said, there's no excuse for what happened on the right-hand side because Trent, Szoboszlai, and Salah have played together all season. So,
can I ask you a question though? Because this links to what you're saying, which is, I know we made this incredible start, but do you think the fact that a lot of this team is new, that unfamiliarity is actually appearing now? So I know we got good results and things were still happening, But is that lack of chemistry, which won't be there if you've only been there for a few weeks and months, is that almost appearing after some good form?
Potentially, because there are, it could be the case. I don't have a feeling it's that though. I just have a feeling what's happened is with every team in the Premier League or with most top teams right now, they have a set way of playing. They have a set formation, a set style, a set tempo that they go with. With us, we actually don't. Now, you two may disagree with me, but I don't have a feeling that we do have a set way of playing currently. I have a feeling we're adapting based on the circumstances that are placed in front of us, whereas the players that are available for the team or the opposition that we're facing or how many days rest that we've got or what the result needs to be, right? I have a feeling we're approaching things completely different every single game. And for that reason, that may be why the players are executing things incorrectly, because it's not a consistent instruction.
So there's always a tweak going on.
There's always a tweak of some sort, I think. And again, I don't want to always end up defending the players and stuff, because I think yesterday was unacceptable, to be honest. I just think that performance was terrible. But you then kind of sit back and look at it all, and then you're like, the way we approach games, is it really the correct way? Because if you look at the past 3 games, in all 3 games, we've started with one formation and we've tweaked it twice in the second half. Yesterday, we ended up doing a 4-2-3-1, right? Did we really need to go to a 4-2-3-1 to get that to get a goal in the game? Why are we needing to get to the third formation to get a goal against Man United? And that's my issue that I've got currently. It's like we're having to get over the line, having to tweak formations in play. And you can do that every so often. But if you're having to do that every single week, something's not right. I'd love for everyone else to give me their opinions on this, like Cav as well. That's just how I'm seeing it.
Yeah, Cav, I guess a big thing of what Fahi's saying is that whatever the game plan is and however we're trying to tweak it to make it better, ultimately we're in a period now during Christmas. We're going to have a game every 3 days. You're not going to have time on the training ground. You're not going to have the luxury, like Fahi is saying, of having a consistent run of players, because you're going to be managing the load of each of these players. So how do you implement something that everyone becomes familiar with when the only thing you don't get is consistency in time in this time of year?
Well, I think that's exactly it, and I think you just said one of the points there with regards to managing players' game time. That is certainly a period that we've entered now, whereby players are getting injuries, so that's forcing changes, and players that are available and fit are having to be managed in terms of the minutes that they're playing. We are playing the game every 3, maybe 4 days. So the recovery time is reduced, and we have to really be careful, because some of the players that are in the starting 11 that played yesterday and the previous weeks, they have been known to pick up injuries. So there's this fine balance between trying to get consistency in the lineups to allow the players to have game time together, to allow them to build that chemistry and fluidity and that natural understanding of each other's game, whilst trying to preserve them and trying to make sure that they're not, overstretching and overstraining and all these kind of things. And it's a very difficult ask, and it's probably the toughest challenge that Klopp has at this point in time. But that was always going to be the case. That was always going to be the case this season with such, a fresh midfield, such, new tactics and stuff. Was you have to find that balance. I just think at the minute, I totally agree with you, Fahi. There is a lot of changes within the game. And whilst that's a credit, because sometimes the changes are often working out for us and they're making us a bit more creative offensively, you could credit the manager and his tactics with that. But you would rather see plan A be better, first and foremost, or rather see plan A not be quite so bad. Yeah. I think
Pep famously doesn't have a plan B. He once said it in an interview. He said, I have one plan, and it works 99% of the time, and it becomes a headline when it doesn't work for 1%. That's what he said.
Exactly, yeah, and he's probably quite right to say that, to be honest with you. But I look at little things, examples whereby if you at the minute with Robertson being out, we've got option of Tsimikas and Gomez in the left back position. Both players play very differently. Both of them occupy different areas, make different runs. So that's going to affect your tactic. Whether you play Curtis Jones or you play Gravenberch on the left-sided 8, again, both different players. Gravenberch is more inclined to receive the ball, turn and drive forward. He's a bit more dynamic. He's got more variety in which direction he changes the play and his body positioning and so on. Curtis is a bit more risk adverse, holds onto the ball, but often will recycle it back to the fullback or the centre back and so on. So you've got 2 players there for the same position that do different things. McAllister in the 6 and Endo in the 6 do different things. McAllister, you'd probably say, will try and thread an Ivan needle pass through the midfield. He's better with his ball retention, so he'll probably hang on to the ball longer. The defence will hang on to the ball longer, allowing the opposition to try and press, knowing that McAllister has the quality to wriggle out. You're not going to do that same thing with Endo. We've already seen that when the goal was disallowed against Palace, that he can be caught out on the ball, so you wouldn't take that risk. You'd want to move it quicker and away from him. You see Szoboszlai and Elliott that occupy the right-sided 8 position. Again, very different players. One's a left footer, one's a right footer. One's neat and tidy and just wants to link play and receive the ball and quickly get it away again and speed the tempo. One wants to drive with the ball. One wants to make a third-man run. One wants to put a cross in the box or shoot from outside the box. So within the same position, you've got multiple different players. And whilst that's great to have options, it offers no consistency in any, and it offers no pattern. The only pattern I can really think of that we've achieved this season is that sort of inverted run that the number 8 will make. And more often than not, that happens on the right side where Salah will thread a ball through to Szoboszlai and he'll drag it back from the byline. Other than that, there's not a lot of patterns forming. And I do think it's largely because of the chop and change in the team. And some of them examples I just gave you, we could go on. We could say that, the centre forward is a huge part of it. The centre forward can often be the pivot in your team and the pivot for the offensive play. And Gakpo and Nunez are totally different players, and then you add Jota into that, again, is a totally different player from them both. So I think we find ourselves rather expectedly having a lot of quality, but just not a system and not the familiarity yet to get the best out of these players. But I remain optimistic that it will come. We just perhaps need to remain patient in this period, to be honest with you. Although, just to finish, just one thing I kind of noticed, and this is perhaps me just going over the top a little bit, but I watch Klopp on the touchline, and I often think, if it's not going right, because I'm watching the game and I'm thinking it's not going right because we look static, we look stuck in second gear, we're not creating much, we seem to be reliant on set pieces, and you're just wondering when this team's going to start ticking over and improve, and it's not happening. And I look at Klopp and I don't see him giving too much instruction, and I worry that maybe his primary focus is to keep these guys fit, and he's so focused on the amount of minutes that guys are playing and he has such belief in these players and their quality that he thinks it will come good. And I see less of him just pulling players over or instructing them, or he's on that touchline often near Tsimikas. Why isn't he saying to him, when Diaz is there, I need to see an overlap? I'm not seeing much finger pointing, much instruction. Maybe the cameras don't pick it up. Maybe it's me just going a bit over the top. But I just think in game, other than the substitutions, I'm not seeing a lot of instructions being given out. I'm not seeing a lot of talking amongst the team, other than Virgil screaming at people or like giving them the death stare. And there must be, someone must get it on that pitch where they're telling other people, no, you should have been there, or you should have made that run and stuff. That's what I'm hoping to see, because that would show us that there is a plan, there is a tactic, and that players just aren't fulfilling it. But I'm not really seeing too much of that body language on the pitch.
Yeah, you only really see that, Cav, when like someone makes an incorrect pass or makes an incorrect move. So, for example, yesterday, Gakpo, second half, there's an option with like 5 minutes to go where Jones was through on the left-hand side and Gakpo decides to go for the shot himself rather than play Jones through. And then Jones is screaming at him like, oh, you should have laid it off here. Other than that, yeah, you're right. You don't really see as much anymore. And maybe that's because the cameras aren't picking it up. But even when I'm at the games, I don't really notice that.
I think that links to what you were saying, though, Fahi, about when the plan isn't clear. When the plan is clear, like Klopp used to have, let's say when your Hendersons and so on were on the pitch. I remember Milan away, Jordan Henderson talked Harvey Elliott through the game, basically, because he knew exactly what, each time you receive the ball, what is the pass that the plan expects you to have. Maybe the players don't know what the plan, what the expected passes and the expected movements are. Because, like Cav said, when Elliot's on the pitch, it's a different foot, it's a different body shape compared to Szoboszlai. And I guess the big thing here, guys, links back to what I said, which is every 3 days, there is going to be a different player on the pitch. So how do you start creating consistent moments when the players are going to change, the fitness is going to change, and the rest time won't be there? How do you create consistency, guys? Because the solution cannot be to shoot the ball into the moon 55 times like we attempted to.
Bro,
yesterday.
we were playing rugby yesterday. It was insane.
It was literally the Six Nations.
It was actually like, it's like, are you taking the piss? Like, once is fine, twice is all right, cool. This happened like up to 10 times.
Yeah, and the worst bit was, you know what the worst bit was? When Gakpo came on to do the same thing. Gakpo came on, he just started shooting from everywhere, and I was like, right. So no one's gonna change up how we're gonna be playing then today. We've decided that's how we're gonna do it. Was that instruction, guys? Tell me. I hate. It's not about coming after Klopp. This guy is probably the second most important man in my life after my father. But this is so important that we look at. Jurgen Klopp has received a lot of plaudits for how quickly he's rebuilt this team to be competitive. Are we a bit further away than the table dictates, guys?
What I would say is that this Liverpool side have only lost one game in the league this season, and we all know how that came about. So there should be a lot of plaudits really given to this side's defensive side of their game. You know,
should we have lost more? Can I just ask? Should we have lost more in that time?
Well, perhaps, but then I would add to say that I think we've conceded 15 goals in the league, and Arsenal have conceded 15. But after that, I think it's perhaps Man City or whatever on 27 or something, whatever. So the amount of goals conceded is actually relatively good as well. 15 in 17 games isn't too bad. One loss isn't too bad. We do have more control in games in terms of possession, in terms of, you know, tempo of the game. Although the tempo is not great offensively, at least we are on the ball. There's not them gaping holes in midfield like we've seen for a large part of last season. And we were chasing our tails, chasing shadows for large parts of last season. That's gone away. You know, we are on the ball. We look more solid. We look more like a team that's, you know, less likely to concede than perhaps a team were last season. We've gone back to teams being a bit fearful of coming out and pressing us, which is good.
Are you seeing better foundations then? Is that what you're?
Yeah. I think a large portion of fans' frustrations is on the offensive play. It's on the lack of creativity. It's on the lack of chances being created. I mean, our goal scoring record is, I don't know how it's as good as it is. We are managing to put goals away, but you watch the games and you're just like, I watch games at times and it gets to like the 20th, 30th minute. And I'm like, I don't know how we'll score today. And then we end up winning 2-0. And I'm just like, I can't apply.
Palace was a clear example of that game.
Exactly. But within these games, and yesterday was another example, everybody will be so frustrated we didn't beat United, okay, because of reasons that we've said, how poor they are and so on. But we by no means deserve to lose either. We did control that entire game. The only thing that we can be really critical on yesterday's game and the games that have gone before is the offensive play. So I would say that for Klopp, he's probably quite happy with the defensive side of the game. He's probably quite happy at the control we've now got in games. And he'll probably say that the hardest part of football is putting the ball in the back of the net. And that takes time. That takes fluidity. That takes chemistry. That takes consistency. And that's something we just perhaps just need to remain patient with and just hope will come. The thing is, we will enter January and people will ask questions whether we need to make signings to speed up that process, someone to come in that will hit the ground running and just knit some things together and instantly, you know, benefit the team offensively. But otherwise, which is unlikely to happen in my opinion, you really are just going to have to see it out with these players for the remainder of the season. Yeah. And by the time you get to the summer, you really will have a good understanding whether these players are going to knit together as in terms of their offensive play, or whether you just need to make a bit of a change. I.e., do you go with a Gakpo, a centre forward that wants to bring people into play, or do you stick with a Nunez who wants to play on the shoulder of the defence, quite often offside, which is rather frustrating. But what are you going to try and do? You'll have seen enough football this season, I think, to have a better understanding. Whereas at this point in time, we find ourselves still in the early stages, trying to figure out what's actually going to be the right personnel and the right style moving forward.
Yeah, and I guess, I mean, guys, I'm at a loss here. I mean, I say at a loss. My mind took a positive turn this morning, which was, I thought to myself, well, I mean, comments, tell me if I'm wrong here. We are somehow 1 point off top spot without our attackers having scored in almost 5 games. So if we get that right, the level of improvement is actually huge.
There's more upside.
Yeah. If our starting point is second, 1 point off top, and we can suddenly get these players on a normal amount of form, I'm not saying everyone's going to get 10 goals in 10 games. This can create that gap we need against City, guys. So I want all of the listeners and everyone in the comments to not feel like I'm talking from a place of negativity. I'm actually desperate for it to become positive, because I think there's a huge thing we can build here if we just sort this out. So let's focus on sorting it out, guys. So Fahi, when it comes to sorting it out, let's go player by player here, yeah? I want to laugh because this is a guy that you have, like, the laser has been on his forehead for months now.
I called it. I told you, look, for ages I said it, and everyone said I was a madman. Give the name.
It's Luis Diaz. It's Luis Diaz. And this is a man, I know everyone's going to say about what he's gone through, and that is definitely a factor. But Luis Diaz had also gone 7 games without a goal before that incident had even happened. And the reason why I'm bringing this up is that, guys, we all talk about Liverpool like a top team. And I want you to check the likes of Madrid. You know, Rodrigo, Vinicius, even Joselu, they're all scoring 1 or 2 occasionally. I don't need everyone to be a goal a game. But I have never seen, Fahi, a top team have players that score 1 in 20. So tell me how Luis Diaz sorts this out.
I don't know, to be honest, because from the time you look like you are running with the parachute on your back and you're supposed to be a 26-year-old left winger with, you know, explosive pace and skill and trickery.
Who doesn't know how to get past Anthony, by the way.
I'm very worried.
It wasn't even struggling against the right back. It was Anthony 1v1 that couldn't beat.
No, and look, this isn't an agenda YouTube channel and show. We don't do that. We say it as it is. And I'm not trying to run an agenda on the bloke, but it's a fact. What I'm seeing from Luis Diaz is scaring me. The second half yesterday is hands down one of the worst winger performances I've seen from an LFC like player in a very long time. And Sadio Mane
What was it though that made it bad? Because I don't want it to just be emotionally driven.
Okay, so he can't actually run past anyone, right? He genuinely struggles to run past absolutely everyone now. He can't run into space. He can lay a pass off and then stay static. He doesn't make the right run afterwards. So he'll lay a pass off. Yeah, like he's not I don't know if this is the thing. Is it an instruction or is he just absolutely struggling right now? Because he's not moving around the pitch how he used to. He can't actually run with the ball anymore. His first touch is still fantastic. Chef's kiss. Beautiful. Whenever you lay a pass off to him, he'll control it perfectly. What he does after that is some of the worst stuff I'm seeing on the pitch right now. Genuinely, when you talk about, like, right now, there's a huge issue with Darwin Nunez not scoring and what is he bringing to the team and all this kind of stuff. But Luis Diaz has been getting away with this for a very long time now. And I don't know how long we can kind of let this go without swapping him for like Gakpo for a while. And I completely understand that Jota's out injured and, you know, we're kind of stuck with 4 forwards and we're trying to make the best use of them all. And Gakpo is probably a better option off the bench because he can cover all 3 positions whilst also playing midfield. I get that. But it's to a detriment that Luis Diaz is on the pitch right now because, yes, he can retain the ball when you give it to him to feet, but he can't run into space. He's not creating anything. He doesn't create a single thing. That left-hand side, unless Tsimikas is making an overlap, which he's not wanting to do,
it's obsolete.
You're not seeing any type of chance creation from that left-hand side. So straight away, the opposition right back knows, I'm all right, to be honest. I'm not going to have to deal with much blocking of a cross or anything at all. That's not going to happen down my side. The only thing I need to watch for is Luis Diaz running through on goal. And even then, right now, he's not really running at full pelt anyway. So it's quite an easy game. That's ultimately what I'm seeing with Luis Diaz right now. And I know I'm kind of just going off on a tangent. But I'm just
pent up. It's all pent up. I know.
It's just the second half really confused me because I just don't understand what he was doing. I don't know what the instruction was. I don't know where he was supposed to occupy space. I don't know what he was attempting. The fact that you can't run past Anthony is actually scary to me. Anthony had 7 successful tackles yesterday. I think half of them were versus Luis Diaz. That in itself is shameful.
Yeah, I hear you. I hear you. And Cav, I guess I should position a bit as to why this discussion is so emotionally charged. Where it comes from for me is that we as Liverpool fans, right, at the start of a season, we love to put all of our attackers on an Avengers poster that they're unbeatable and uncomparable. And you can't mention another player in the league who's performing because we'd much rather have our own. And then when you mention other players who are producing more or doing more week to week, not just numbers, but just being active. I think if you ask a lot of Liverpool fans who they like, a lot of them will say someone like Luis Diaz is so much more talented than Anthony Gordon, for example. Yeah. But when I'm watching games on a weekly basis, Cav, Anthony Gordon is unignorable. Every time he gets the ball, he's changing the fortunes of his team. Like Fahy said, there's a net positive every time he receives it. So tell me why a player that I saw at Porto, to be honest, and fell in love with, why a player just does not have, and forget the tactical side. I'm just talking about a free-roaming, expressive player like Diaz, why he just cannot do something that is catching your eye at the moment.
Wow. I suppose if I had answers to that question, I'd try and get them to Klopp somehow.
You'd be on the bench right now.
But I think I fall into this trap, certainly, where we sign such good people, like down to earth, humble, good characters. You see them around the, inside training videos, they always smiling. There's a camaraderie, and you really buy into this sort of family feel. And I think it's true. It is there and stuff, but often, and I certainly think this is the case with Diaz.
Our character identification is very good.
Yeah, you like the character, but that shadows the football on the pitch, and that's certainly been the case for me of late. Obviously, the off-field stuff's took him away from football a little bit. Of course, we all sort of supported him in the best way we could as fans and as a football club and so on and so on. But there comes a point where it's like, okay, back to business now. You're one of the, biggest names in terms of a winger in this Premier League. You come for good money. There was a lot of teams that were after you. You started your career at Liverpool brilliantly. I remember that first long ball that was pinged into him, and he took that touchdown, quite skillfully. And you thought, wow, we've got a Neymar light here, kind of thing. That was the excitement that was there. And obviously it was coincided with Mane not having the best of time out on the wing, forced him to come central. And you kind of just thought, okay, cool. There's a succession to the Mane of old now. We've got a left winger. What a prestigious position to play, as a left forward in a Liverpool side that is attack, under Klopp. And Klopp creates such brilliant forwards. Here we go. It's going to be brilliant. And it hasn't been. And I think the upsetting thing is, what we got with Sadio Mane, above the hard work and the clinicalness and the able to beat his man and stuff, he was always making the right runs off the ball. Yep. More so often you would see that Trent would pick the ball up and he'd just ping a pass, and by the time the camera had caught up with it, it was on Sadio Mane's chest, or it was on his head, or it was taking it down as he was running into the box, as he was running across his fullback.
I think, Kev, I was going to say, just to add to that, I think one thing about Sadio Mane no one can ever doubt is that he is one of the most switched on and alert tactical players you'll ever see. The moment a scenario happens that it's like he sees the markers on those diagrams, and he just knows when it's my time to make that run now. He never gets caught ball watching. It's like an elite level of focus, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. I don't think that's said enough about Sadio Mane, but there's a bit of a tangent. But what I come back to is that he's not making them off-field runs. We're not seeing them switches of play into Diaz. Often the switch of play from Trent is going into Tsimikas or wherever the fullback is at the time. So I don't think his off-the-ball runs are good, to be honest with you, which is fine because with the player that I sort of profile him as is more somebody that's dynamic and is going to create on the ball. So then when he receives the ball, and you can clearly see that he's now stood the defender up and he has an option here to cut in, maybe do a skill and go by his man, drive to the byline and maybe put a cross back in across the box. He's so reluctant to do any of that. He just runs with the ball for a short while and you get excited as a fan and he'll stop and he'll look. Yeah. And he will stop and he will look for the left-sided 8 or he'll look for the fullback. And by which point the opposition have managed to get back, their back set into their defensive shape. And here we go again. We've got to do something really dynamic, really tick-a-tacker, really creative to try and break down this low block. When actually the space was there, you just didn't drive into it. You didn't take that decision early enough. And that's what's frustrating for me is that if he's not going to contribute with the goals, and he's not going to contribute in terms of creating, at least be a problem. At least just every time you receive that ball out on the left, go at the fullback. Whether it's successful half the time, you've got 90 minutes here. You can go at him and go at him and go at him. And as we've seen Liverpool come up, have possession in most of the game. I think we had 61% against United. That's a lot of time on the ball. That's a lot of time for the forwards to go and do something. So even if you're not successful, every single time, at least make that defender think, at least make that right-sided centre-back from the opposition's point of view think, I might need to get over there to help my fullback. Put these little bits of fear into the opposition, make them think, make them react. At the minute, like you alluded to, it's a little bit too easy for the opposition when Luis Diaz is on the ball because they know he's not going to do anything. And that's what's frustrating. Now, is that down to instruction? I don't know. We've seen this before with players that come into this Liverpool side.
What could the instruction be, though? What could genuinely? I'm not pulling you up on it.
Yeah.
If a guy isn't finding a good pass, if a guy isn't doing something that, we put attackers on the pitch because they take more risks than other players on the pitch, right? Mm-hmm. What could the instruction possibly be for Diaz to be doing nothing?
I don't know. I don't know. Because it seems you couldn't quite believe that Klopp would send him out there and say, you know what, just play for the team today. Every time you get the ball, hold on to it, recycle it to the midfield, and let's see what comes about. I'd be more inclined to think, because we've had evidence of it with the forwards we've had in the past, that when he receives that ball high up the pitch, go and do some damage, and maybe it's just Klopp just saying he has got quality, he'll come good, he's had a tough period, he'll be all right. But how long do you give that,
what is this magic number? And the other bit I don't get, and I don't know, Fahi, I'll bring you into this as well, is that I feel like we all make up this thing of like, the Arsenal game is going to be the game that Luis Diaz finally wakes up. Like, why do we pick these arbitrary matches?
Who said that, though?
No. I've seen Liverpool fans say the team are going to wake up, X players this is going to be his statement game, whatever. My point is, why would he not have tried to have these games the past 15? Like, why do we need to invent a new market in the future because the past has been so unproductive? Why do we do that? Is it just as a coping mechanism?
It's a coping mechanism. It's copium. It's clear. It's clear. Like, listen, us as Liverpool fans, we love coping mechanisms, and that is one of them right there. That's a great example. I don't see what you can base that off and be like, Arsenal was the game where someone shows up, because I've not seen anything in the past 3 months for me to think he's going to show up against Arsenal. I'm very, if any of our viewers right now,
we all want him to.
I'd love for him to, but I don't know where you would think that, like why you would think that. It's the thing is, we're in this. It's so weird because we're privileged in the sense of, compared to other teams in the Premier League, we are quite blessed with the squad we currently have available, but we're also in a situation where we can't take Diaz out of the firing line. It's really odd. And I think usually what you would do is take him out the firing line and put him on the bench for a bit. I don't know if you remember, Sadio Mane, 2017, 2018, he went through a really rough patch, November, December time. And after a while, he was really stinking out the joint. And then Klopp took him out of the team for 2-3 games. And it did him the world of good. And I think that's what Diaz needs. But right now, we can't do it. Obviously, we're hoping for number 20 to come back, Diogo Jota. And whenever he can come back, then I think that's when slowly you can give Diaz that break. But then you say that
3 players for Jota to one man to come in, right?
Exactly. But then the other thing is Salah goes away to AFCON. So then Diaz is going to come right back into the team. So he doesn't really get a break. He needs to get out of this funk himself. And I really don't know what it is, man. Because someone asked a good question in the chat. And they were like, name one player Luis Diaz has a good relationship with. And other than Curtis Jones, I've always used the excuse that, Diaz doesn't have a great relationship with Robbo. That's why they don't know what's going on next. I then said the same for Shimikas. And then I then said the same for Gravenberch. And then I said, the left centre mid position keeps on changing. So it's difficult for Diaz. At some point, he needs to take ownership himself. And,
you need to think, what's the common theme here of the person who you can't form a relationship with, right?
There we go.
Yeah. Do you think that maybe when he picks that ball apart on the left, he seems more often than not to look infield? He wants to drive inside with the ball and get a shot away, or he's looking for a pass. And do you think it's something to do with the centre forward and the lack of sort of chemistry between the two? I often think if Bobby was in this side, would it just cure a lot of our problems? If we had that pivot up top where Diaz and Salah both naturally, when they get that ball, they're looking infield, they're looking towards the goal, and they're probably looking for somebody to link up with. And that player simply just often isn't there. And so that's why the ball goes back to a midfielder, because that's the person they feel like they can bounce off. And I just wonder if it's maybe they want to play a certain way, but when they're picking their head up and what they're expecting and seeing, they're just not getting. I do sometimes wonder that, because both Nunez is. I mean, we could talk for hours on Nunez.
We're going to be talking.
I can't believe it's been nearly an hour. It's been nearly an hour and we've not spoke that name once. It's unbelievable.
We've got to keep the people waiting.
We've done a really good job.
Well, without trying to go into him too much, I just think it's that when you have a forward like Nunez, and this will affect the two guys either side of him, you just don't know what you're going to get. So Diaz is perhaps picking the ball up on the left, and he probably knows that there's going to be an overlap. So he knows that option's there. That's almost just natural. It's just instinctual that a player is going to arrive at some point. So when you're holding on to that ball, that's probably what you're looking for. But also you're looking infield. You're looking, has a midfielder made a third man run? Has he made that inverted run into the byline? Has he come short to offer a 1-2? And also, what is my centre forward doing? Can I clip it into the back stick to find him? Has he come short to offer me a 1-2? Has he drove across the box to take a defender away so I can then run into that space and get a shot away? What is that player doing? And more often than not, we have no idea what Nunez is going to do. So this guy's probably thinking, not to give him that excuse, but when we talk about why he isn't linking up, I do look at people around him and just say, well, what is he looking for that he's not getting? And for me, it probably is a centre forward that's helping link things up, because you could say the same with Salah. He picks that ball up out on the right. He's looking infield. If he sees someone in the box, Nunez or whatever, on the penalty spot or the back stick, he might try to clip it in and find him. If he sees that Szoboszlai's made that run infield, he'll put a good weighted pass into him and he'll play that ball. Or he'll play it back to Trent or get it back into midfield. But what he's not getting now is Bobby Firmino, where he'll pick his head up, give it him knowing he's getting back. That play is not there. And so I often wonder how much is down to the centre forward position as well.
Don't you think, though, Cav? I agree with what you're saying, but doesn't that work both ways? And what I mean by that,
absolutely.
If you're a winger, sometimes, and Salah does this a lot, you'll play the pass that you want to play, and when the run isn't made, you're almost telling the striker that, look, I'm going to play that pass, I'm going to make that cross. It's your job to be there, because you've seen where the ball went, kind of, it flashed past or whatever. For me, I don't think Diaz decides that, you know what, I'm going to show what I would have done if everything was working properly. So now it's almost becoming like it's like nothing. Do you get what I mean? Like I feel like that's happening a lot. Whereas Trent is good at that. I think Trent will curve a ball in or clip it back post. If no one's back post, he has the right to ask where is everyone. But I think with Diaz, because he's such a five-a-side combination player, if the combination isn't there, he'll never complain that it's not available. It's just he'll adapt and okay, cool. Looks like that 1-2 isn't there. Whereas I think Salah complains a lot. You use Bobby as an example. Mate, how many times did Salah just play it into Bobby's feet? Bobby would lay it off. Suddenly Salah's 10 yards further in the pitch than he was before. Is Nunez even being asked to do that? I don't know. Should we be asking a player who doesn't have as good a touch to be doing that? Let's go into it, because I really, really, really want to talk about this guy with some kind of logic, because my logic has disappeared now with this guy. So everyone's favorite striker has now gone 10 games without a goal. Sometimes it's Klopp's fault. Sometimes it's the creator's fault. Sometimes it's everyone's fault except his. Cav, I haven't spoken to you about Darwin Nunez. How much of Darwin Nunez's struggles are Darwin Nunez's fault? If you could give a percentage.
I would actually say
comments. What percentage is Darwin at fault for his own form?
Do you know what? Without giving this too much thought, I would say it's 50-50. And I tell you why, right? I tell you why. Because I'm very tempted to say it's Nunez, because I am frustrated with him, and he's okay. So I believe this season he has improved somewhat in terms of his hold-up play and his link-up play. It's improved.
Not to, good now. Yeah,
exactly. Not to say it's good, not to say it's anywhere near where it needs to be for a Liverpool centre forward, but it's improved. Okay. He has affected the games in terms of his work rate, his energy, his pressing, getting the crowd on side. You know, we hear the Nunez chant going when he's at Anfield. Seems to be a little bit of a fan favourite for God knows what reason. But that's a positive thing, okay? And Liverpool often have looked very static. So I've cried out for a player to just make something happen. I don't care what it is, just something. Let's not let this game pass us by. So you can credit him with that. He's missed a hell of a lot of chances, some very easy chances. That's inexcusable. That's down to him. But the style of player that he is a relatively tall, relatively strong in certain sort of in certain movements. Yeah. But his main attribute is his pace and perhaps his movement in the box, because he does get on the end of things. It's just the fact that he isn't tucking them away. The only way that's going to work for him is if you tailor the system to that. So I always liken him to somebody like Jamie Vardy. Got involved in no build-up play whatsoever, was just on the shoulder of the defence every single time. Often worked having Mahrez out on the right, Okazaki in behind doing all the hard work, hard yards. Have someone just get the ball, build up in whichever way you can. But the aim was always to get it straight to Jamie Vardy, use his pace, and he was brilliant at getting that touch just around the keeper, get a penalty or tuck it away. That's what I think Nunez could do at this point in time, but that's not what he's going to be asked to do at Liverpool. A, because you need to be so much more as a centre forward. You need to bring other players into play. And B, you're going to come up against a low block where you're not going to have that space to run into. So I think you take away largely the things that are going to enable him to really showcase what he's good at. So now we're asking him to be a hold-up man, to be a man that can link play, the man that can... We're expecting flair because we're so used to it with our centre forward in Bobby. Not to mention his name again, you can tell how much I love this guy. But we're expecting things from him that I just pure and simply think he will improve on. But I'm not sure he's ever really going to work unless you change.
If the space is never going to be in behind and you're going to have to be that link-up forward that links together, is he ever going to get to a level where Liverpool's season can be put on his shoulders?
I tell you what, the only way I see it working is if you say to Darwin Nunez, you're the fox in the box. I don't want to see you leave that 18-yard box. Everyone else is going to do the work around you. We're going to put balls into the box. We're going to create for you. Just make sure you are moving as much as you can inside that 18-yard box and getting on the end of things. And of course, every single player needs to link up to some extent. So he's going to have to improve and continue improving in that respect. But often there are balls put into the box and he's not there. Yeah. He's out. He's out on the right wing, or he's dropped deep to try and link up, or he's trying to turn and drive. And it's like, you're doing so much in the game, but none of what's actually really effective.
I think a good equivalent of the suggestion you're making in terms of his role is what Arsenal asked of Aubameyang. I think Aubameyang's role was very much that. He wasn't very good back to goal, but had amazing movement and sharpness. I guess the one bit that isn't comparable is that Aubameyang's finishing and shot selection was elite, right? One of the best goal scorers in the last 10 years across Europe. Fahi, how does a player like Darwin Nunez also become one of the best goal scorers across Europe?
I think Cav hits the point quite well, and I've mentioned it a few times before. A few of us have, to be fair. He's an instinctive forward. He's an instinctive finisher. And I think right now, with Darwin Nunez, we're asking... By
the way, how ironic is it that someone becomes available the moment we get into Darwin chat?
Yeah,
so, go on.
I was waiting.
Hello, Edge. How you doing?
Big up, guys.
Yeah, how you doing?
Yes, Cav, what are you saying?
Yeah, all good, man. All good. We're discussing your favorite forward. So back to Darwin.
I've been listening. You've been
listening. Brilliant. Yeah. So back to Darwin Nunez. I think he's an instinctive forward, and right now we're making him think. That's the problem. By making him think, we're getting what we're getting. And I know that sounds bizarre, but it is what it is. What you've signed is what you've signed.
How do you create non-thinking moments then?
By literally floating balls in for him to run onto and do something with. Whereas right now, you're asking him to create, link up with Salah, link up with the midfield, lay balls off, run into space, and then it creates an angle for Salah to run into. That's too much for him because you're making him do all this thinking. And then when he actually gets an opportunity on goal, he's thinking, shit, am I supposed to be laying it off to Salah? Am I supposed to be doing this? Am I supposed to be dealing with the overlap? Should I be cutting in? He doesn't have the in-game intelligence to know what he should be doing. He's an instinctive striker. The best moments for him at Liverpool right now have all been instinctive. We have to deal with what it is right now. And that's what he is. And I think we're asking him to do a lot. And yes, he's improved for sure. I've been saying this. He's definitely improved. But when you're struggling to give Johnny Evans a game at Anfield, I'm this close to selling every single stock I have because as a Liverpool fan, I always want to give a player a chance, right? And what I saw yesterday, again, it wasn't as bad as certain players, but the fact that there was no actual threat there, and when there was a threat, he would overthink it and make the wrong decision, and it's now cost us again, it just makes me really wonder what we do with him next. And you mentioned Jamie Vardy as a good comparison. Leicester used Jamie Vardy in a certain way because they knew he wasn't great build-up play, all this kind of stuff. Use him to run at goal on the shoulder of defenders and strike on goal. That's what we need Nunez to do. And yes, his accuracy isn't the best, but you're going to get more out of him doing that than what he's currently doing.
I mean, but can I just can I just add? There was a moment very, very early on in yesterday's game where Trent was wide out on the right hand side, and he stands the ball up to the back stick that Nunez headers, and he should do better with. Them moments there is perhaps what Nunez is so used to. Balls into the box from wide, players putting crosses in, whether it's on the ground, high, chip back stick, whether it's floated across the box, whether it's driven across the box, and he's just making them short, quick runs in front of the defender, around the defender, back stick, front post runs. And he's probably not doing any of that in the minute because there's just no clear way in which we're building up these attacks. So I would say that whilst, everything that we've just said, I believe to be true, and that he's probably overcomplicating this game. Actually, I think the entirety, it goes back to the point we made earlier, the entire system and build-up is very complicated, very complicated. If he knew that all you need to do in that box is just get across your man, and make sure you get on. But if he knew that every time the ball went wide, it went to Tsimikas, it was being driven back across the box. If he knew every time Diaz picked the ball up, he had to come deep to link up. If there was patterns there and there was clear instructions, he could maybe improve. But there is just so many different players that play so differently within this system, and it's so unclear that he probably just thinks he needs to do so much more than he actually does. Yeah, and it is very complex.
I hear you. I guess the only thing I would rebuttal to that both of your statements would be, I would ideally love to simplify what we ask of Darwin, but I also think that any top club the requirement from a centre forward is complex and is a lot. Whether you're looking at a Harry Kane, whether you're looking at Lewandowski, like they're doing a range of things. They're playing with players who do different things. When Lewandowski's playing for Barca, Rafinha does a very different thing to when Gavi gets the ball. I think high caliber players and high caliber teams expect a guy who can deal with that complexity, right? And whether Darwin can, I'm not sure. But Ish, I'm going to bring you in. But this is going to be an interesting perspective for me because you were at the game. You were at Anfield yesterday, so you had a chance. You trekked all the way across for that thriller, but you got a chance to see it on the pitch. And I know your thoughts on Nunez are very evident, and you're not a fan. But for me, this is more of a constructive chance for you to talk about what you saw from him and what you were expecting that he could have done better whilst watching it in the ground.
I think we are in danger of babying him a little bit, and like I think the fact that he's missed so many big chances this season is quite telling. It's not a case of he's starved of opportunities, and we're creating all sorts of opportunities for him as well. 1v1s, cutbacks, tap-ins. I mean, the chance yesterday where he stops and appeals for a penalty. Like Salah's played a relatively straight through ball to him. It's only his bad touch which kind of takes him inside the box like that anyway. I think it bounces off his knee, then his shin, then it kind of rolls to Diaz. I don't think we're asking him to do anything that is overly complicated. I know what you said, Mish, about like the requirement of a top number 9 is X, Y, Z. We're not really asking him to, well, I'm personally not asking him to be a 20 to 25 goal a season striker. I just want him to kind of finish the chances you would expect, like we've spoken about before, like a Ollie Watkins or a Brian Buemo to finish. So I think being at the game yesterday kind of made me see a lot more like he's just not doing enough. He's simply not doing enough. Even the chaos which we were kind of like trying to brandish him with at the start of the season when he got the brace against Newcastle, that seems to have gone out of his game a bit as well. Like if he was a striker, he was just getting the ball, touch, bang, shooting, and the shots were going quite well, I'd understand. But he's dilly-dallying on the ball. He's kind of like, he's not even getting the chances for himself like he used to. He used to be able to manufacture chances from himself, which I didn't really see much of yesterday. So I think with Nunez, like we just need to see a bit more out of him. And I think, like you said as well, Mish, he's not going to be a one-on-one striker or 1-2, but can you just show me a little bit more on the pitch? He kind of went off yesterday, and apart from that glaring chance he missed, I didn't see enough from him. And obviously, you guys have spoken about Diaz as well, and like I have the similar thoughts on him, but I just want to see more. Really, I want to see more general play.
Do you think this whole chaos thing is overstated a bit? Because I think chaos, the word chaos, whenever we use it with Darwin, means that defenders don't get a moment to breathe. He's a pest all game. I think I've seen a lot of games where Darwin isn't affecting the game.
He's not. I think we confuse like erratic finishing with chaos. For me, chaos is like a Didier Drogba who used to occupy an entire back.
Osimhen at the moment, maybe.
Osimhen, yeah, he'll be tussling with the right back, then he'll be with the left back, and they're all kind of looking at each other like, where do you pick this guy up? Nunez doesn't really do that. He has chances where it looks crazy, and he's always in the middle of something crazy going on. But he himself, I'm not seeing him kind of go around and kind of try and occupy all kind of aspects of the back four. And I didn't even see enough of him running in behind yesterday. Trent had the ball loads of times. He is someone who can pick out a pass on the sixpence at the drop of a hat. But I didn't see enough from him or Diaz in terms of are they running and trying to stretch United, going
forcing Trent to play a pass kind of thing.
Oh, like Fahy said it himself, you're up against a 39-year-old Johnny Evans. Johnny Evans didn't really have to break too much of a sweat yesterday. I know Varane did a very good job as well, but you weren't really isolating Johnny Evans and saying, me and you, let's go down the channel, down the touchline. It was just kind of like he was just there. And then what annoyed me even more was like the one big chance that kind of fell to him, he made an absolute pig zero out of it as well. So I'm just, I'm all I'm seeing is that it's confirming it each week that this guy I don't think is going to be the guy that a lot of Liverpool fans think he's going to be,
or want him to be.
Yeah. Well,
I think it's that as well,
right? And Cav, I mean, you've given a lot of, excuse the pun, but caveats, I guess, for Nunez's current performances. But are we losing sight of the fact of he's 24, so he's not Rasmus Højlund, who's 19, 20. He's Liverpool's most expensive ever signing. Are we almost hiding away from a set of standards and expectations we should have of him.
Yes. And do you know, I said this at the start of this season or during the summer. I felt like we had a season where we were struck down with a lot of injuries, you know, and it was clear to see that the midfield wasn't functioning how we used to, and that there was clear and obvious problems in that side that we needed to fix, right? And I felt like in the summer we addressed them issues by making the midfield signings, and we went into the season with, you know, options in the defense, although people wanted an extra defender. We had options in midfield now, and we had certainly options in the forward line. And what I said to I wrote it down, and I said, this is what I'm going to say every single game: no excuses anymore. The time for excuses is done. We had that going into every single game week last season, because Thiago would drop down a day before the game, or Jota would fall down, and it's suddenly a makeshift team. It's suddenly, we'll just get through the game. I don't want to get through games anymore. I want us, we've got the personnel, we've got the manager, we've got the expanded stadium. We're in second place, a point off top. I know we have one or two injuries, but every single season you're going to have one or two injuries. Every single team is going to suffer that same situation with injuries. So at some point, just work. And we've not what we've talked about is excuses. It's reasons why. We're trying to, you know, dive into it. We're trying to, you know, work out why we aren't playing well and why these players aren't performing to their level. But for me, pure and simply, they just need to be at a standard that this top club expects. And I think for this season, we have lowered our standards with these players for various different reasons, because of the off-field stuff with Diaz, because of the likeness we seem to have for Nunez. As that comment pulled up, he's 24, he's not a young man anymore. Because we've got a Premier League legend in Mo Salah, every single player seems to come with reasons and excuses. And there just comes a point where we just need to go, this is Liverpool Football Club. What's gone before has gone before. And actually, this is what we got at the minute. So go out there and perform. Go out there and do the job on the day in the minutes that you're playing. And it needs to come from the individuals. And in answer to your question, I think yes, we have lowered our expectations somewhat. And I think games like yesterday will flag it up and probably bring us back to reality a little bit as to where our expectations lie. But certainly if the results continue to match the performances and we start trickling down that table in the new year, people are going to start, you know, really getting onto these players' backs, because being top of the league, being second in the league, being so far ahead of not so far ahead, I mean, it's only 4 points, but being ahead of Man City, and not some fans probably not taking Arsenal quite so seriously, I think is covering over some cracks at the minute. If we were outside the top four playing how we're playing, people would not be happy at all. And that's only two results that take that away. You know, to be honest with you, that's only losing to Fulham and Palace that could drop us outside of that position. So, you know, you always, I think at the minute we're getting away with stuff. We're getting away with lowering our expectation because of where we sit, and there's still optimism in this side. But if they don't start to improve, I do believe we'll start to drop down that table, and then we will start to really pull these players up on their performances even more than we are now.
And you know what? That thing you're saying about needing to improve, needing to take responsibility, Fahy talked about earlier as well, quite early on in the episode, about players feeling like there's lack of accountability because someone else will score. I'm going to give a really odd example here, but I want it to be explained. This isn't a basic, like, you know, a simple straw man argument I'm going to give. When I watch Brentford, right, this season, Yohan Wissa and Brian Mbeumo, have to perform every game and have to be fit every game, because there is literally no one else who can play for their club. So when we talk about the likes of Gakpo or Nunez or Diaz who haven't scored for 10-ish games, Brentford will literally get relegated if Mbeumo and Wissa can't maintain a 1 in 3, a 1 in 4, a 1 in 5. Surely it shouldn't take the threat of relegation or something to make these players wake up. Surely the eye of the prize of we can win the Premier League should be enough of an incentive to create a good amount of form.
You would think so, and I think maybe Cav touched on this earlier. This is kind of what makes the United result almost a good result, because we have been living a charmed life in recent weeks in terms of just relying on worldies from our midfielders and from set pieces from our defense. So, like, we shouldn't be relying on this. And I think if there's anything to give us a bit more impetus, it should be this. Like in the Arsenal game now, I'm not saying I want to brace from each of the front three, but I expect them to be taking chances and then be taking their chances as a result of that. We didn't really see any of that, or I haven't seen any of that in the last 3-4 games. We've not needed our attackers to do that, but I think it takes for one game like United for everyone to be like, no, listen, you guys need to be the ones who are delivering for us up front. Like you said about Brentford as well, like I know Mbeumo's injured at the moment, but if Wissa goes on a 10-game drought, those guys are looking around
as well. By the way, like Wissa needs to play well every week.
Yeah, right? And this is the thing. Like, this is why I'm even more so onto Diaz at the moment than I am onto Nunez, in the sense that Diaz is just not giving us anything like at all. Nunez, he's annoying because he's very wasteful, but he does actually attract a lot of chances. Diaz was out there yesterday, and it was quite worrying to look at how poor he was and how unable he was to not even beat a man with, like, I'm not asking you to do like a flip flap for his legs, but can you play a 1-2 or so and then try and receive the ball around the other side? Like, it was concerning, man.
The answer is no.
Honestly, like, and I'm trying not to be like too hyperbolic here, but it was like watching. Yeah, it wasn't good. I'll leave it at that. It wasn't good yesterday. We need to see. But then it's like, who does he come in for? Jota's out at the moment. I don't know when Jota's going to be back, but I don't think he can keep starting games if he's going to be putting in performances like that, because then it gets to 15, 16 games with no goals, no assists. Like, it's not good. It's not good.
Yeah, I mean, I guess we don't have much time. We've got about 15, 20 minutes. I just want to talk. Cav, we'll get some of your thoughts from you, because I know you don't have too long on us. We've got 2 huge games this week, right? We've got West Ham, which is obviously a cup game, a very realistic cup we can win when you think about who's left in the competition. And then, of course, our most direct rival at the moment for this league. What are the changes? And it doesn't necessarily need to be personnel. It can also be approach, management, whatever. What are the changes that you want to see this week that haven't been happening?
Oh, it's difficult because, okay, so I as you was speaking then, I was thinking to myself, I wonder what when they sat down at the start of the season, what the expectation was for this team. What was the goal? And most certainly the bare minimum would have been to get top 4. Did this team, these coaching staffs really believe that they would mount a title challenge? I honestly don't know. They probably thought with the players they've got, they're probably capable, but we know it takes more than just quality to go on and win a Premier League. You need experience in it, and we've got a few players with experience, but you certainly need a team that has chemistry, that has fluidity, that understand each other's game, and the team that sits top of the table, it's no surprise that they are the most consistent sort of starting 11 you've seen sort of last season going into this season. So I just think that maybe there's such calmness and such a lack of reaction, because at the minute they're achieving what they set out to achieve. So then I think they just don't want to make too many changes. They don't want to, say too much in post-match press conferences about individual performances and so on, because they know it's not particularly helpful to single players out. So there is occasions where players need a bit of a rocket, and sometimes coming out and highlighting a player in the press or whatever it is can do that. But actually, Liverpool are probably achieving what they need to at this point in time. So there's no need to react in such a way. It's just wait and see what happens and hope it improves and continue to work on stuff. Because let's not be naive. They will continue to be working on stuff on the training pitch. Not exactly seeing it in the performances, but they will be. And I also think that they'll be targeting a trophy of sort, domestic cup of sort. So I don't think we can waver from them expectations we probably set ourselves at the start of the season to achieve top 4 and to get an FA Cup or a Carabao Cup. So for that reason, I think at this point in time, be it that we've not even passed the halfway mark yet, just stick to that plan and still remain strong against West Ham in the cup tie. And let's just see where it gets us, because we can worry about, Arsenal aren't in that competition, are they? So they're gonna have a little bit of rest in time for that game, a little bit more time to prepare and recover. But we can't look too far ahead. We just need to focus on ourselves. We need to focus on the players we have available. We need to put out the players that are going to do the job, build that momentum again, build that chemistry again, and just see where we're at when the next game comes. Because I think if we look too far ahead, we'll just fall victim of just flattening out and not achieving anything. So I would like to see this week, a strong lineup against West Ham. I want to see a good performance.
It's at the London Stadium, right? It's not at Anfield.
I think it's at Anfield.
No,
Anfield.
Yeah. Yeah. I want to see a good performance that gets the Anfield crowd on side, that gets us something to cheer about, that gets us something excited about to go bouncing into that Arsenal game. And look, if we happen to get 1 or 2 injuries in that West Ham tie, fine, it can happen. We can't really control that. But I would rather take that risk going bouncing into the Arsenal game with all of that momentum, with Anfield really excited. And let's try and not steamroll them, but let's do what we did last time where we really made them fret and panic, and let's harness that momentum to go and get a result. And if we don't get a result, put the season into context, we'll probably be 3rd in the league, 2nd in the league. Going into the new year, would have all took that at the start of the season, and it doesn't mean that we're out of the title race by any means. So I think what I would like to see at this point in time is, of course, injured players return, and I don't think Jota and Robbo are too far away. They'll be massive help to us where we find ourselves. But just take each game as it comes, play a strong lineup, and just really just focus on building these performances. If you can keep a consistent starting 11 from the off. Pull them off after 60 minutes, but try where possible to really improve on these performances and get some consistencies in the lineup, because I think that will put us in good stead for the long haul. And ultimately, it only matters where we end the season, not where we are at this point in time.
Yeah, I think Cav's big message has been a clearer identity. That's what he wants to see.
Absolutely.
Better way of playing. And I guess, as you were talking, Cav, one thing that when you were saying about what did the players actually expect? I mean, Fahi, we haven't heard from you in a little bit. I guess maybe, am I being unfair? Because everything I expect and compare with Liverpool is based on a team that was capable of getting 99 points and 97 points. And those are the standards I keep wanting to see. I guess we should always strive, but is it unrealistic for me to want 2 players to get to 30 goals a season, to have a player who's at the top of the assist chart, to have a team that only loses 1 or 2 games the whole season? Is it a lot of us as fans who are actually getting too excited about the fact that we're high up in the table and we're forgetting it's a transition season?
Yeah, definitely. I think people have kind of lost where we should be as a footballing team currently. They've lost the project that's currently in play in terms of Klopp 2.0. And they've seen, and look, not rightly or wrongly, they've basically seen an opportunity for us to kind of shithouse it to the top. Shithouse it is harsh, but you know what I mean. It's not expected of us. It never was expected of us this season to be where we are currently. And everyone is seeing the opportunity that is there, which is fair, because if you're looking at teams around us, they're all dropping points. The Premier League is very competitive this season. You cannot predict a single game. And purely for that reason, our fan base is feeling that, you know, we have a really good opportunity of achieving, you know, a title chase, a title win, whatever you want to call it. But the reality is we're still at the start of Klopp 2.0. This is a transition season. We've not even solidified the midfield yet. We've still got one more signing to come. If it comes, I'm not here for that debate right now, but that's not complete, right? Even in defense, Joel Matip is going to be out. We will get someone else in, whether that's in Jan or summer. There's someone else that's we're expecting that already. We already know that is the next phase of this rebuild. No one at the start of the season thought title chase. No one at the start of the season thought we'd be first or second. It was never thought. It was never spoken of. If you did think of it, fair enough. But based on any conversation, any type of content that I've seen, no one ever predicted that. So we're in a really blessed position. And I think we've kind of lost track of where we actually should be. and where we currently are. And it's just purely because of the opportunity that is in front of us. You know,
there's a vacuum there. There's a vacuum there.
Yeah. We're bemoaning what happened yesterday purely because the opportunity is right there. We can see it. We're smelling it. We saw City drop points on Saturday, and we're like, oh my God, we can be 7 points ahead of them. We can smell it. But then obviously whatever happened yesterday happened, and we've kind of lost track of where we should be.
Yeah. I guess where we should be is compared to kind of, where our peers and competitors are. So Ish, based on all these things we've talked about, and even stepping out and thinking what this Liverpool team looks like, Cavs talked a lot about what this Liverpool team looks like at its best. How far is this team, not saying there is a gap, but do you think a gap exists between us and this Arsenal team? Or are Arsenal also flawed and we're just happen to be competing? I think a lot of us have talked about the fact that this is not going to be a 95-point Premier League season. I don't think at all. I think it's going to be a 87 or an 88 or something like that. Yeah. Do you think there is a gap that exists between us and Arsenal, or is just two flawed sides?
I would say definitely both flawed. Definitely not anywhere near the kind of quote unquote City pool levels of 96, 97 points. But what I see more in Arsenal, which I do like, and which I'll give them the benefit, or give us the benefit in the doubt, in that they've had a year longer being this kind of iteration of their team, is that I do see clearer patterns when they're playing. I do kind of, if I shut my eyes, I can kind of see an Arsenal move a bit more coherently than I can see Liverpool move. Whereas sometimes with a Liverpool move, and which I saw a lot of yesterday, it was wherever Trent is, we'll get the ball to him and see if he can make magic from that position. Whether it's in the 6th row, whether it's wide on the right, whether it's in that right half space, it's kind of very dependent on where he is on the pitch. Whereas with Arsenal, the mover parts kind of move a bit more consistently. But other than that, I do kind of see the same flaws in that neither team is free scoring. I think Martinelli's got 2 league goals, Saka's got 4 or 5 non-penalty goals. Jesus has got 4. So, like, when you look at the underlying numbers, us and their attacks are kind of pretty much the same. Both conceded same amount of goals, I think. But you just see a bit more control in Arsenal's play, and that just might be stylistically. You can't really
underlying. I know we're on the same goals conceded, but I think Gabriel and Saliba's and Rice's underlying numbers are fantastic so far.
Yeah, that kind of holy trinity of those three is brilliant, but again, you can say they've got problems in goal with Raya and Ramsey.
There's a crap keeper behind it.
So if you shift that triangle back a bit, you can say that Van Dijk, Alisson, and Konate or whoever is as strong as Rice, Gabriel, and Saliba. So there isn't really much in it as such. But I just think when I watch Arsenal play, I just see a bit more kind of consistency. But there's more than one way to win a title, so it doesn't mean that necessarily one is right and one is wrong. I do think we'll be quite close come the end of the season as well.
Yeah. I guess the only thing I do want from you guys, and in the comments as well, let's do this. I want a prediction for the score against West Ham. Let's not jump to Arsenal yet. I want a prediction for the score against West Ham, but also 2 changes you would make in the lineup for that West Ham game at home. So I'll give you a chance to think. And also in the comments, of course.
All right, Mush, whilst they're thinking, can I give my thoughts on this?
Yeah, go on.
Based off the performance that I saw on Sunday, I wouldn't change much because I think these guys need to get this funk out of their system. And they need to work out how to play with each other. And what I would do is take out either Virgil, Konate, or Tsimikas, because those are the only 3 alongside Ali that actually did nothing wrong yesterday. They did what was expected of them. The rest of them, they can stay on that pitch for 90 minutes for all I care, because they need to work out how to actually play together, because I don't know what I'm seeing right now. But so what I personally would do, I take Virgil out for sure. I take Alisson out for sure. I probably would take Tsimikas out too. The rest of them can stay because they and also everyone will be like, oh, but it only means 2 days break and Arsenal have got, a whole week to prepare for it. Throughout the 26, 27 years of me supporting this football club, we've always been at our best when we've had a run of games within a week. Whenever we have a week to prepare for a game, we're absolutely crap. Absolutely.
United was the example.
We just showed that. We rested all of our top guns, and bar Virgil and Alisson, they were crap. It's better if we have a run of games that we're just going after. I know it's going to be tough on the legs, and I know we got a game on Boxing Day, but I'd rather us just play every single game, because if you take these the bozo performance from yesterday and give them a break on Wednesday and then put them back in on Saturday, 90% I'm sure we're not going to see much improvement.
It's rewarding bad behavior as well. If you say, yeah, you guys get a break after doing literally nothing for 95 minutes. They, like you said, go again. Diaz, Nunez, let's see some shots on target, please.
Okay. So interesting. What about you, Kev? So these two are talking a lot about, making the players who played on Sunday answer for their sins. What about you?
Yeah, I go along with it, not wanting to just everybody have the same opinion and agree, but I do go along with it. I think changes wise, might as well chuck Kelleher in there because he deserves some game time. I think Kwanzaa, I'd love to see again. I think he's really stepped into this side and stepped up as well. And you forget how young he is, you forget how inexperienced he is. He just seemingly is just playing like a first teamer, which is great. And that's going to be good for his development. Maybe you could put Elliott in there based on his performances coming on as a sub. Perhaps he deserves the starts when these cup ties come around. But other than that, maybe Gakpo in place of Nunez, just to work on that development, just to work on that forward line to see if he can, knit things together better. But again, he's not really set the world alight this season. So there are changes that can be made, I think will be made, unfortunately, just to keep things fresh and keep rotating in terms of fitness and so on. But if possible, I would try and keep the consistent lineup for the reasons that Faye said, because they need this fluidity, they need this chemistry, and they need to just. I don't think we can take West Ham lightly as well, is the other thing.
They're a good side.
Yeah, Kudus is come in and done really well. They've got Jared Bowen. They look like they can score goals. Paqueta as well, playing well at the minute. What you don't want is a bad result at home against West Ham, go out of the cup and then go into that Arsenal game, because it can go one of two ways. You can think, okay, we need to respond, and they really go for it. But I'd rather it be that we get a win and we get Anfield bouncing and do it, because we've seen in the past that's how we get one over on Arsenal. Because I think footballing wise, they're playing better football than us, and I think if the game's slow and there's space for both teams to attack and drive into, I think we're at risk of being picked apart from Arsenal, to be honest with you. And I think our best chance of winning this game is to get the crowd on board. We've seen it in the past, and just really try and hammer in and see how mentally strong they are now. They will be stronger because they've had the experience enough in the past, but you need to continue to home in on that and try be that, try and make that your method to sort of break their back. So I would go strong. I'd go consistent and just get the win and see where the rest of the season takes us. Try just get some consistency in this side now.
I'm so happy because I'm in the complete opposite camp of you three. And
you're gonna change everyone.
No, not everyone.
but I tell you one. Well, just sorry to Gravenberch will be enforced, so that's unfortunate as well.
Yeah, I guess the way I look at it, and I've got to stay true to the stuff I've been saying, right? So I think momentum, good or bad, is very hard to break. So for me, if I've been seeing nonsense from a lot of these players, if I put them out on the pitch again, I'm going to get more nonsense. So for me, I would put on a few of the players who have actually energized the team and been a positive influence. And I think Harvey Elliott and Joe Gomez at right back. I think those two, the crowd, the fans are really appreciating just how much they're changing the momentum of the games. They feel like such a positive influence when they come on. And I think that ground and the team need it more than ever, because I don't see who else is going to pick up that form and change around what they've been doing. So, yeah, Elliott for me, and I would love it more than anything if Elliott or Gomez got a goal. I mean, Gomez will never score, but Elliott to get the goal that maybe sets us through, because the kid deserves it, because it's very hard to come into a team that's not functioning already, come in halfway, 3/4 of the way through games and play well. So let's see. Last thing, score prediction, guys. I'm going for a 2-1 Liverpool win. I don't think it's going to be too comfortable. Ish, what are you going for?
I think we win on pens. either 1-1 or 2-2. But yeah, I think we win on pens. West Ham, they're in good form at the moment. Well, actually, the up and down form. They had a good result on the weekend, but yeah, I think I fancy us to concede a couple, especially if we change the keeper as well. I can see it being like a 1-1 or 2-2, but we'll win on pens.
Okay, Cav.
Yeah, I was gonna go for the same. We don't play extra time.
Straight
to pens. I can see a 1-1 and going through on penalties.
Okay, Fahi, finally.
Yeah, I'd say 2-2 and pens. I can see it going to penalties too.
Okay, interesting. It's going to be an interesting follow-up for this.
Basically, none of us think we're going to win, but we don't want to say
I said we're going to win 2-1, right? But that's because of my boys Harvey and Joe. Nothing to do with the other guys who wear this shirt, right? It's nothing to do with it. I wanted to thank everyone in the comments. Make sure you like and subscribe before you go. Cav, I'm so grateful you joined us today. I hope you enjoyed yourself, mate. You'll be on regularly, I'm sure. How was it for you? Everything good?
Brilliant. I said it at the start of the show. I love talking about football. I love having these conversations about Liverpool. I would do it every day if I could, but especially with you boys. Really, really enjoyed it this evening. So thanks for having me on. Appreciate it.
Appreciate it. Ish, Fahi, love as always. Thank you very much for joining.
See you next Monday is what? Christmas Day. We're not doing next Monday. So
yeah, as much as I love you guys, I might not be seeing you Christmas Day, but I'm sure we'll get something out on YouTube at some point during the Christmas break because there's big games coming. And make sure, guys, KopEndFracas, get onto the Patreon, post-match, pre-match, tactics shows, everything to do with anything to do with Liverpool. We are there. So thank you, peace, and love to all.